What is up, guys? Pappy here, and in today's video we're going to talk about what they covered over here in PC Gamer earlier today. So it was published about 2 hours ago. Bungie's Joe Blackburn talks Lightfall, Strand, and huge systematic changes coming to Destiny 2. So the director also discusses weapon crafting, subclass reworks, and why there are more ways to play than just smashing bosses. So over here, we'll go ahead and they got all kinds of nice visuals on here of all the different new armors and the different subclass, like just artworks and stuff. It's really cool. You can definitely check it out. So down here, it says last week's Destiny 2 showcase dropped a deluge of information about the next major expansion, Lightfall, set to land on February 28th. It sees Guardians journeying to Neptune and the previously underdiscovered gleaming city of Neomuna. There they'll meet new allies called Cloudstriders, learn how to wield Strand, a second Darkness subclass, and face off against Emperor Callus, whose Shadow Legion has been augmented by the Witness and now includes the monstrous Tormentors. Those guys are awesome, by the way. They look so cool. I can't wait to get stomped by them personally. So, even for committed Destiny 2 enjoyers, it was a lot. Even that was before you got into the systematic changes, like the addition of the much requested in-game LFG. That is going to be a lifesaver. I don't raid very much. I hate LFGs. I don't have a lot of friends or a lot of YouTube followers yet to do like raids and that kind of stuff, and I just don't raid. I don't raid a lot. I've never been flawless. I don't do most in-game activities just because I don't have a lot of people that I can do that kind of stuff with. So an in-game LFG, it will help me a lot, and I'll greatly appreciate that coming. To help find fire teams for any activity, and the even more requested loadout manager and improvements to the frequently maligned new player onboarding experience. With so many threads to pull on, I wanted to speak to game director Joe Blackburn immediately. He was joined by assistant general manager Dan. I was trying to figure out how to pronounce this, but it's like Mikalife. I have no idea. And we started off with Strand. So again, like the loadout manager, I just recently started using Destiny Item Manager, and I love it, but it's really slow and clunky. It's not made by Bungie, at least I don't think it is. I think it's just another third-party app. It's kind of probably open source, made by the fans. And it's a good app. It's just, if Bungie made a loadout manager, which they're going to for Lightfall, it's going to be significantly better. I cannot wait to just have like a preset loadout for each. Like maybe I really like Void or something. I can have like a PvE and a PvP Void, and then I can have one for Arc, Solar, Stasis, and Strand if there's enough spaces for that. With the different loadouts that you can save, that would be amazing. Another cool picture here. This one has looks like the Warlock summoning, and like this is so cool. I don't understand exactly what they're going to get into, but read this little part. See, Warlocks unleash a burst of Strand in their super, but will also be able to summon Strand creatures. In my second Darkness subclass speculation video, I talked about summoning because it was mentioned in some paste bin leaks, I believe, how we could possibly summon stuff like that, and that is amazing for a Warlocks. I mean, I know it's just going to be Warlocks. Maybe it'll leak over to Titans and Hunters for be able to summon some other stuff, but that sounds absolutely phenomenal to me. I can't wait to. I don't play any other class but Titan. I would very rarely jump on a Warlock and almost never play Hunter. But being able to summon other creatures, oh my gosh, that would be really cool. I hope we get to. I hope Titans get that as well. Destiny 2's original light subclasses have relatively obvious themes in fire, electricity, and infinite nothingness that haunts us all. In 2020, Bungie added the first Darkness subclass in the icy form of Stasis, but Strand feels like the most esoteric
which is funny because that's another YouTuber's name. The most esoteric subclass offering so far. I wonder if he'll like it. He should definitely main it if that's the case. The pitch is that you're reaching into the weave of the universe to pull the weave of the universe itself to pull on the threads of life and death. In gameplay terms, that translates to hunter thread runners wielding a rope dart, warlock architects summoning creatures spun from Strand, titans seemingly getting the short straw with another melee heavy kit in the form of oversized claws. Okay, Titans, we ain't getting any kind of like short stick here. Like, all we care about is punching things. Like, mostly that's all we really want to do, and so that's not really a short straw, at least in my opinion. Now it's a spiky punchy thing. It's not just lightning fist, it's not a shield, it's not a hammer or an even bigger hammer. We're getting spiky hands that we can punch stuff with. It's cool to me. I can't wait to do it. So over here, with most other opinions gone, Strand has been designated green as its signature color. I asked Blackburn whether the design space for new subclasses is now starting to feel restricted. He rejects the idea, arguing that, if anything, the combat team has an overabundance of ideas for new subclasses. Now, this definitely, like, we as players have an overabundance of subclass ideas and elements and stuff like that, whether it's like kinetic, stasis, corruption, pure light based, pure dark based, stuff like Rolk would use, like pyramid tech kind of subclasses. Like, that's just a handful that I just pulled out of nowhere that I've heard other people talk about, that I've thought about. Yeah, we won't be running out of ideas anytime soon. We may run out of colors before we run out of ideas, that's for sure. He says for Strand, he says the desire was to create something that felt very blockbuster. It started to really get crystallized when we saw rope darts and whips and weird things being grafted onto people's arms. A little tidbit about Joe Blackburn here. And then on to the rest of the article. In Lightfall, all the classes have a Spider-Man style grappling hook with Strand equipped. As a destination, the Cybertropolis of Neomuna is all about verticality, so the hook enables you to traverse the skyline at high speed. It's also intended as a combat tool, which makes me wonder how practical it is to zip around like whatever this says, performer in mid-Firefly, especially in in-game content such as Grandmaster Nightfalls. I completely agree with that, because, I know what they're going to get to because I've already read this, but, like, that makes a lot of sense. In Grandmaster Nightfalls and stuff like that, and really difficult, like, content, you probably don't want to be bouncing around, flying around, gliding around, whatever you're doing in those. You're going to get shot out of the sky. But you'll see this in a second. So I think you will absolutely be seeing people use grapple in high-level PvE. He also notes how handy Strand is when you need to dunk an object into an area teeming with enemies, especially if a teammate makes you invisible with a smoke bomb first. Now, this actually answered a couple of questions I had. So, one thing I was wondering is, like, can you carry, like, an object to dunk at the same time as using it? I would think not, but I guess you're just gonna, like, football hold it and then swing where you need to go, and that's good. That's how it works. And it also says that your teammate can make you invisible with a smoke bomb first, which means that using your Strand grappling hook, however it functions, you're not going to lose invisibility, because if you like throw a grenade, melee, or shoot your gun or something like that, you lose your invisibility. Well, you're going to be able to grapple while being invisible, and I think that is amazing. There's a picture of what I think is the hunter. Yeah, the hunt. Oh, this is cool. Hunter's using his super. He's got his little whip with a spike on it or whatever, the dart rope, and he's using the grapple at the same time. It's just going to be incredible to me. I can only imagine like the melees and stuff you'll be able to do. Destiny 2 players are notorious for finding ways to get out of bounds, either to cheese encounters or access secret content. Surely the addition of such a powerful movement tool will lead to an explosion in shenanigans. I'm always nervous when we introduce new things. It says, what's this guy's name again? Because I'm not going to try to say his last name. I don't know his name. Whatever. So, he says, but it's nervous excitement. We want to push the boundaries of freedom and choice. He also thinks the hook has potential to revitalize old content because players will be able to traverse spaces differently. This part I like because if you noticed in like the trailer, they went to the old Warden of Nothing strike where the trains are zipping around, and they use the grappling hook on the train, and the train just yoinks them all the way like across, and like they go flying super fast and stuff. It's really cool, and I can only imagine like I want to grab a hold of the interceptor. I think they're called interceptors. The Cabal ships that fly around. I would love to be able to grip onto one of those and maybe like hit fire my gun or something at them as they're trying to get away, and then you like blow them up and you like fall to the ground. Like the cinematic experience of that alone is really, really cool to me, and I hope we get to do that kind of stuff with them. On the potential for breaking the game, he is relatively relaxed. Our team is incredible and will locate and fix the most egregious issues. You know, there will be industrious players looking for ways to grapple over mountains, but I think it is absolutely worth the trade-off for the cool moments of feeling like a superhero when you grapple in and revive a teammate and get the heck out of Dodge. So Blackburn adds that the decision to greenlight the grappling hook was made as soon as they saw it because it was too cool to say no to. Which definitely I agree. If it only was on Hunters, oh man, I would be upset. I love Titanfall. And I need a grappling hook. I love Sekiro and their grappling hook. If the Titans and Warlocks didn't get it, oh man, I would be disappointed in Bungie for sure. So he says, I don't think it's necessarily going to drastically increase the ceiling for out-of-bounds shenanigans, he says, laughing, because our ceiling is already really high. What it probably will do is make it easier for lower skilled players to visit mysterious hidden areas like the galaxy pools without having to learn arcane sword movement glitches. And we got a Cloud Strider here. It would definitely look cool. So why get cyberpunked now? Watching the showcase, I have to say I was a little surprised at how hard Destiny 2 is leaning into the neon-drenched look. Aside from light dalliances with the cyber aesthetic during Season of the Splicer, locations like the Arcology on Titan, which that's what I was comparing it to whenever I was watching the reveal, is that what that kind of reminded me of the city on Titan. Which is another water world, similar to Neptune. It's rather interesting, actually. The Destiny series has largely stuck to its signature style of collapsed civilization overrun by nature. I'm worried going full cyberpunk might make Neomuna seem a bit obvious. He says he doesn't think so. He says one of the main reasons for the radical change of... Oh, Dan's his name. Dan. Okay, I just gotta remember Dan. So, Dan doesn't think so. He says one of the main reasons for the radical change of direction was the desire to create separation from the Witch Queen, which was all earth tones, flat ground, caves, rather than just give players another terrain sort of environment. We asked what would be really We asked what would be a really strong change of pace. Go up, go modern, go fabricated instead of grown. The key idea was verticality, which led to traversal and actually entering these futuristic spaces. Neomuna is also notable for being inhabited rather than just abandoned. This is a world under invasion by Callus and his troops, with its own defense force in the form of the Cloud Striders. Contrary to what I'd assume from the various leaks, the Cloud Striders are not aliens, but human colonists who fled the original collapse on Earth and have since evolved in secret. They're powerful, but they aren't light wielders. They won't be the ones to teach us the secrets of Strand, or finding something that has never been touched, confirms Dan. So one thing I think is cool is that, like, back in it was either the Golden Age or sometime after, during the collapse, there was a lot of ships that were expanding. They were leaving the universe. They were trying to just find new worlds to inhabit. Dead Orbit was a huge advocate of this before they left the city. Now, we know one of the ships, I can't remember what it's called, but it's on Nessus. It's where, that's where Failsafe is. Failsafe was the AI that took care of the ship and its inhabitants. And it was another colony ship that was trying to leave and create a civilization similar to the one on Neomuna. But they crashed, something happened, it was bad, and now they're just stuck on Nessus and everybody died. But there were plenty of ships that left the solar system. It wasn't just one, I don't know how many it was, but several ships actually left and they survived. At least as far as we know, they survived. And it looks like one of these is on Neptune, and they became Neomuna over the years. So let's go down here. Yeah, we got an awesome looking Tormentor picture here. I hope these guys are just devastating. You know how the Briggs, when the Briggs were first introduced outside of the raid, they were absolutely like devastating to fight against. Maybe they weren't that bad. I personally didn't find them that difficult, but they were a tougher opponent than most like open world enemies. They were like world bosses. They were a serious threat, and I'm hoping the Tormentors are similar to that. Which they're going to mention it here later, but I hope the Tormentors are a lot harder to deal with than Hive Guardians. Hive Guardians have been memed a lot, and I hope these guys will absolutely shred us personally. The biggest threat on Neomuna's streets come from Tormentors, huge denizens of the pyramid ships. It's exciting that with the current era of Destiny 2 drawing to a close, we're finally facing off against the actual forces of the Witness. That's clearly what we're doing here with the Tormentors, says Joe. We're showing what these disciples and followers of the pyramid look like. Some of the most ancient and most converted ones. In terms of design, Tormentors share much DNA with Rolk, the raid boss of the Valve Disciple. Rolk was a big lift for the team, says Blackburn, because he was the first one. It was the first one. We needed people to come away saying, whoa, these guys are tough. These things are tough. They could take on anything we fought before. We want to keep that bar really high. He says Tormentors will be even more dangerous than Hive Guardians, so when one appears, it's going to be a big deal. Dan says, it's the thing that demands all of your attention in a solo activity. In a group activity, the call out is going to be, frick, Tormentor! Oh man, I hope that's what it's like. That's going to be amazing. Snuck in towards the end of last week's showcase was a piece of bookkeeping that gave a relief to the whole fan base. So Bungie will no longer be sunsetting entire expansions in 2020 due to the game's ever-bloating file size and the impossibility of testing and balancing every new piece of content against all the old stuff. The studio took the tough decision to begin removing some expansions, including their accompanying planetary destinations. Now, one thing I want to say about this So the reason why Bungie had to do that was because they didn't have the money or the people to keep up with it all. The only reason why they're ending an end to sunsetting, as they say, is because they have this new partnership with Bungie. With Sony, and so they have a lot more money. They're hiring a lot more people, and they're getting into a lot of other content that's not even just Destiny 2. They're getting into possibly mobile gaming, possibly TV shows, anime, 3D shows, whatever it's going to be. They're really branching out what they're trying to do because of the amount of money and support that Sony's given them. And my understanding of the deal, which I really don't know much about the deal, but is that Bungie is going to retain a lot of the creative decisions and how they're going to make the game, but Sony's getting a cut, but Sony's also going to support them financially to be able to hire a lot more people to be able to keep maintaining these old destinations, making new guns, making new subclasses, new perks and all this kind of stuff, new guns, and being able to keep up with this game that's just constantly growing. So due to Bungie having this partnership with Sony is the only reason why the end of sunsetting is even happening. It would have never been possible if Bungie didn't have enough money, and now they have enough money. So if you were doubtful that the relationship with Sony was good, hopefully this helps alleviate your stress on that one. Predictably, it was about as popular as taking away paid content ever is. So what changed? Dan says, as we close the Light and Darkness saga, which runs from Shadowkeep to the final shape, we wanted to make sure that the whole sequence is fully playable from start to finish. That's critically important to us. It's down here. The reversal on sunsetting has been enabled by upgrades to the game engine and infrastructure because of money. Seasonal content will continue to expire as normal, which makes sense, but bigger content drops like last year's 30th anniversary DLC will stick around in perpetuity, which is good because not long ago, I don't remember when it was, they said that this would, they said the 30th anniversary DLC was going to leave, it was going to, Dares of Eternity, the ability to get these guns and all that kind of stuff, they said it was going to go away. But that was pre-Sony partnership. So due to them having that now, we get to keep Dares of Eternity. We get to keep, the game show around with Xur and everything. It's Star Horse. So that is definitely a good change. It is not a case of we just fixed one flaw in the engine and now never need to sunset anything ever again. We're always going to be making hard trade-offs between ongoing and interoperable systems and awesome content and the ever-growing file size. I asked him specifically whether some of the older planets might still be on the chopping block, and he says everyone can breathe easy about Nessus, says Dan. And this is the concerning part, at least for now. Which I realize that's probably just him trying to, cushion himself a little bit. As in, if the Sony Bungie deal is bad, or maybe they really need to pull Nessus out for narrative reasons and then bring it back a little bit later. If they're not trying their best not to sunset destinations and old content and stuff like that, it makes sense personally to me. I would like for there to be a battle for Nessus with the Vex, and maybe we lose, and then Vex is so overrun, or Nessus is so overrun by Vex trying to convert it to a Vex homeworld that they that we just can't land there anymore because we would get shot out of the sky and we can't get there. And then, maybe a year passes and they bring Nessus back and it's fully converted to a Vex planet. And now everything looks different. There's new content, new locations, all that kind of stuff. And we go into a new Nessus. And I feel like that's a viable thing to do. And I feel like it should be done. But just as long as we have other planets and other content to play,
and you're not really dwindling down. You know, we have this much to play. I don't want Bungie to take away half of the planets. I would rather them add 3 new planets over here over the course of time, and then take away a planet, edit this planet heavily, and then add it back. And then, you know, they're still adding other planets and other content to the game, so I feel like that would be fine. I personally liked that approach. When the darkness came, it took away all the planets and they were sunset, you know. I feel like that overall was probably a good thing. Down here, he says, I'm starting here, so a related perennial problem is that of item storage. Bungie gave players an additional 100 slots to store gear in the Witch Queen, and sure enough, we rapidly filled those up and began complaining again. I asked Blackburn what the long-term answer is, because it's not likely they're going to stop making new guns every 3 months. This is still on our list of big, hard Destiny problems that we want to look at, he says. We're looking at systems that can make you feel like you don't need to keep everything, because the world doesn't end if you get rid of a gun. I completely agree with this. I mean, you don't have to hoard every gun that's ever been good in Destiny history. It's okay to delete them. I've never had a problem with vault space in my life. Destiny 1 was the only time I had a problem with vault space. Because, I mean, back then there was barely any. So, but this, I don't have a problem in Destiny 2 with vault space at all. Because I recognize when a gun is no longer good. They've added new systems. They've added origin perks. They've added crafting. Like, I don't need these old versions anymore. I have a crafted version. Or if I have the same gun, but now it has an origin trait, I'm not going to keep the old one, even if it's fully masterworked and it's got 10,000 kills on it. I don't need it anymore. It's not viable anymore. I'm going to chunk it. I would definitely suggest getting used to doing that. Even though they're trying to find a way to, like, they're keeping you to have the ability to upgrade your guns permanently to keep up with the power level. But they continue to make better versions of the same guns, and so it's just better to chunk them anyway. It's a really interesting problem, and I think unique to Destiny, because so many other MMOs just say you can't use the gear anymore, which is what they did in the past. Whereas we're on the opposite, saying, what if you could use everything? And players are like, great, we love using everything, but your house only has so much closet space. True. Part of the problem is that Destiny isn't like other MMOs. A sword in the World of Warcraft is basically just a stat stick, but Destiny guns look and feel amazing, so players get emotionally attached to them. Blackburn thinks that finding new ways for players to be able to reclaim weapons and perk combinations they've acquired in the past could be part of the solution, but that comes with another data storage issue. So I want to speculate a little bit, not much, but like, to reclaim weapons and perk combinations they've acquired in the past, they could do it like they do the armor ornament system, how you can turn any legendary or any armor piece into an ornament, and then you can make your character look how you want. They save the data of how this armor looks and the fact that you've acquired it in the past. Due to the fact that they save the data that you've acquired it in the past, they could save the data that you have acquired a palindrome hand cannon, and you had these 2 perks on it, and it had all these magazine mods and barrel mods and all that kind of stuff, this certain masterwork. They could save that data, but what they're saying is part of the problem is that it's a data storage issue. That can be fixed with money and building more space on their servers and in their systems to have enough space for people to be able to save these guns and stuff. But there's a lot of guns in Destiny. There's a lot of perks. There's a lot of perk combinations and guns and old versions and newer versions. And
that making a collections for previously acquired guns could be really hard, really dangerous, and really, it's like, it would just be difficult for Bungie to save all of those. One thing they could do, which could be a good idea, is that they could allow players to save like one version of an old gun, and then they could just like safely dismantle it. That version goes into collections, just the same old standard collections we have now, and it puts just like a little green check mark in like the top corner of the box of that gun in collections or something, and that means that you've saved a version of this gun. If they wanted to introduce a grind to it, they could, make a bounty system that rewards you with material to save guns like that. And maybe like lore reasons, you could use like Vex technology as like the reason for how this works. You may have this tiny little Vex portal, and you have a little thing that you put in it, and you can pull out stuff from the past that you had. And I feel like that could be just a pretty cool system. Maybe work with the Black Armory on that or something. But that could be really good. I feel like that idea could work really well, but I don't know. Hoarding is compounded by the way that the combat meta in Destiny changes so often, with the whole archetypes of weapons phasing in and out of relevance according to balance changes and seasonal mod options. As a result, the community clings to several versions of every notable weapon variant in the case they suddenly become relevant. Viable. So crafting has has potential to be a solution here, says Blackburn, but the risk is that one false move and suddenly the whole game is unlocked at your fingertips at all times. True. I mean, to a point. I mean, you could lock people behind it through grind or other things. I mean, that'd be fine. Limit how much stuff they could save. I don't know. That I don't think he should really worry about that personally. I asked him whether it might help if crafted weapons let you create an extra row of perks once you got to a certain level, negating the need to keep multiple versions of the same gun for separate purposes. A PvE and a PvP all-string. Blackburn doesn't promise anything, but he does like the fact that having a crafting pattern unlocked means that you can adapt to the meta as it shifts, alleviating some pressure on players' faults. However, he also admits the thing that we haven't solved is the player that wants to swap quickly between two different perk options. I don't know why this is difficult, personally. We have all kinds of guns with multiple perk options. Now, given they're not enhanced perk options, they're not guns that have been leveled and stuff. We know that guns and armor have a data limit set by Bungie on purpose to prevent the game from getting too massive, to contain and just keep the game, functioning and flowing the way that it needs to, without lag and frame drops and stuff. You're going to have those problems inevitably, but the reason why we have limited amounts of mods and on all of our guns and armors is because of this data limit that they've put on. They found ways around their own limits to keep things fresh, and that's like with origin perks on stuff, and then like the seasonal armor that has the extra perk at the bottom where it says like if you're wearing like 4 of these pieces, then you get 5% per piece of extra boost to how much material you gain from this seasonal currency. They found ways around these perk limits, these data limits in the past. And I think the reason why our craftable weapons don't have those extra perks is because they're levelable, which means they have to store the data to have a level, to have an experience level applied to them. They have the data that this weapon is craftable. You can take it to this station, the Enclave, and get it recrafted and reshaped to be like a new version. It has to store that data, and it has the data all on top of that kind of stuff. When it reaches level 20, it gets an extra little bit of a stat bump. And then even on top of that, you can have these enhanced versions of these perks, and that has data associated with it too. So while the craftable weapons only have the single string of perks on your gun that you have in your hands, and they don't have any of this extra stuff that even like random drops have, is because of all this extra data they've put into their gun, and they can't go beyond that data limit. And that's what he's kind of talking about, I believe, is that they want to add the extra row of perks, the extra barrel mod, the extra magazine mod, the extra crazy perk, that kill clip versus harmony, that kind of stuff. They want to do that, but they're running into this data limit problem. That's my theory on why they're having trouble trying to get the swap quickly between two different perk options. I think that's why they're struggling with that personally. So hopefully, due to the Sony money coming in and the extra support from employees and stuff like that, that they'll be able to find a way around this problem. Hopefully. So onwards from here. Playlist activity and subclass refresh thoughts. Towards the end of our talk, I turn to one of the topics that bother my clanmates the most: the lack of updates to the Vanguard Strikes, Crucible, and Gambit playlists. Completely agree. For a long time, these were core to the Destiny 2 experience, with players grinding out rewards and XP over endless matches and missions. These days, with some of the content in terms of maps and missions lost to sunsetting and other stuff 5 years old and showing it over familiarity, can make these playlists very frustrating to feel forced to engage with. We have a team that's looking at a bunch of these problems, and I'm even really happy with the work we've seen this year with us doing things like adding battlegrounds to those playlists, which was a good change. Because battlegrounds are a lot more fun than strikes, in my opinion. With the immense amount of enemies, it's just a lot more fun. We're going to be doing a bunch of work specifically in the Vanguard playlist around Lightfall. We're going back to some strikes to update them. Dan adds that he doesn't think every strike needs to be replaced, but says the team wants to go into the older ones and give them the same kind of attention that new content gets, which could be amazing. I mean, you could go into all of the old Hive strikes and throw in Hive Guardians, Lucian Hive, and the moths and everything that fly around. That would be an amazing change to just Hive-related ones. I feel like that would be a really good idea, personally. So over here, let's see. I have to imagine that Bungie's to-do list for Destiny 2 is voluminous at times. The studio is essentially engaged in an eternal process of rebuilding the airliner as it flies. Over the past 3 seasons, the heaviest lift has been the rework of all 3 original light subclasses in order to move them onto the modular system that Stasis uses. The result has seen an explosion in power level as new synergies and combos were created. In some cases, the new abilities were added and old favorites got revamped. Many perks were rolled into each other and others were removed entirely. And for the most part, the response has been positive. Certainly our Guardians have never felt so strong. It's definitely true. Astrocross even put out a video, I don't know, it's been several weeks, probably a month or 2 even, and he put our Guardians getting too powerful. And I definitely think they are, which is why I hope that the Tormentors will absolutely body us and make us think again, like, wait, maybe we aren't too powerful. This is a single unit from the pyramid. Like, what if the dude sends out pyramid ghosts and like creates all kinds of pyramid beings out in the world out of all of our old enemies. At like, that could be serious. That could be a big deal. And I feel like that would be amazing for us to just get wrecked by all kinds of enemies. Make content almost unplayable due to how difficult it is. I feel like that would be really cool, personally. Just something so hard that only the best of the best can do it. I don't know. Maybe that's a little too much, but it could be fun. Are y'all a fan of the new Titan seasonal armor? I don't really care for the armor, this part, but I love the Catch Killer's arms. They got the huge, it's like a bull head with gigantic horns off of the sides of it. Oh, it looks so cool. Let's see. Inevitably, with such a large player base, there has also been criticism. The rework to Void Hunters and Solar Warlocks seem to miss the mark, although in both cases, experimentation has led to powerful builds. I ask if it's disappointing when groupthink sets in after only a few hours of play. No, says Dan. I don't agree with this statement. Void Hunters in PvP are the worst. They suck. I hate them. They're constantly invisible. They're so annoying. Solar Warlocks PvE with like the finger snap fire thing that they can do, along with all the scorch decks and stuff that you can do to like work that in. You can make everything explode. I don't agree with these. They missed the mark? Nah, doubt. I'm not a hunter or a warlock main, so whatever, I guess. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. I think they did a good job. If everyone universally hated all of the 3.0 updates, I would be disappointed because of all the work that goes into them. He says, I think that much like most of social media, if you want to find a particular echo chamber, you can find it. But what we're seeing from the community is diversity of thought. We make such unique player fantasies that we're not going to hit everybody with every single one. And I think that's okay. As long as, I don't know where I got that from. So I don't worry so much about the clarification of negative sentiment from certain folks. One of my favorite parts of these reworks has been the use of new verbs to denote specific effects that are shared between perks and abilities of each subclass. Void got stuff like Volatile and Weaken, Solar got Scorch and Ignite, and Arc just added Jolt and Amplified. My only complaint is that some of these are more visually legible than others, particularly when you're being shot by many aliens. For example, it's easier to see when a target is volatile because it's surrounded by a swirl of purple particles. However, I found the solar stuff harder to parse. Whatever. I can tell the target has been scorched because it will be burning. It's tricky to see how much scorch I need to apply before it ignites, like a mini Krakatoa. I completely agree with that. Scorch and Jolt, it's harder to tell that that's happening with them, but Volatile was extremely obvious. I think the reason why Volatile was so easy to notice and understand was because Titans had Volatile for such a long time that everyone's just kind of used to it at this point. And they also had more time to work on it. The devs had more time to work on it and make it so it was so obvious. So I think we'll probably get those bigger, more noticeable effects added to Scorch and Jolt over time. Yeah. So let's see. It's something we always think about, says Blackburn. With the older subclasses, some are easier to identify and some are hard. We have so much stuff that catches on fire. So this is a big thing where after all three subclass 3.0 work, the team is having to go back and make these elements, these buffs and debuffs more consistent.
In the future, because they've gone through this pain, they can say, okay, we've got a new damage type. What's really important? What are the things that we need for visual identity? With the newer subclasses like Stasis and Strand, it's pretty easy to tell if something is frozen with Stasis. One piece of feedback I've seen regarding the recent Arc 3.0 rework is that a couple of subclasses crouch too hard on a specific exotic armor in order to make them viable. I mentioned Geomag stabilizers on Stormcaller Warlock and Curse of the Falling Star on Striker Titans. To a point. I mean, Striker Titans also got a really strong melee that you can use infinitely with Insurmountable Skullfort. I actually put out a video on that yesterday if you want to check it out. But let's see. I think there's a bouncing point with a bunch of those, says Blackburn. There was a long time where people that use Celestial, not Heart, were like, this is the way you play this class. If you aren't using that, then why are you even using Golden Gun? Valid. We've gotten to a place in recent years where we have exotics that are like a 30% boost. You can use it or not. It takes time. It takes some time and some thought for people to break out of the idea that the only way to play Destiny is to smash the boss as hard as possible. It's a really good point. It's a really good point and reminds of the fact that the weapon perk discourse... Goodness gracious, I can't read this. It's a really good point and reminds of the fact that the weapon perk discourse revolves around what does the most damage to bosses in a short window of time, rather than what is useful over the course of an entire activity. Blackburn uses the example of exotic primary weapons, which are all given a whopping 40% damage buff against minor enemies, and now make power ammo drops more often, as an example of how hard it can be to change mindsets. And exotic primaries are really good. I actually did not know this. I knew about the damage buff against minors, but now make power ammo drop more often. Exotic primaries make power ammo drop more often. I never knew that. So my Risk Runner is not going to give me more power ammo. I need to think about an exotic primary to use. Rather interesting. Okay. Dan says the solution should improve once Lightfall lands. I think that when our loadout manager comes online, it will help with some of that. Right now, it seems likely to experiment as a player, and I'll trend towards the thing that everyone says is good. Whereas, if I can switch really quickly, I'm more likely to experiment and find something that works better for me. He's right. And for an invertebrate, I've never heard this word, addict like me, the loadout manager is even more exciting than the addition of tormentors. But before Lightfall arrives, I still have the current season of Plunder to yo-ho my way through, and another dungeon to best before the year ends. At one point in our chat, Blackburn mentions the next 10 years of Destiny, and for almost any other game that would sound absurd. But if anything, the series is only speeding up, heading out towards the true MMO FPS hybrid that us holdouts have been dreaming of for all these years. Another cool picture of the hunter doing something with his super. They really like the hunter with this class. Oh, that's the end. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It's been me, Pappy, and I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.